Welcome to episode 49 of the Let's Talk Thyroid podcast. In today's episode, we are talking all about the million-dollar question of how do you lose weight when you have Hashimoto's or an underactive or hypoactive thyroid problem. That really is the million-dollar question. It's the most common question that people ask when they join the Let's Talk Thyroid community. It's a very common frustration because when we have an underactive thyroid, whether that's caused by Hashimoto's or not, everything slows down. Our metabolism slows down. And so, in fact, gaining weight is a common symptom, can help people to identify whether they even have a thyroid problem. And then it can be really difficult to actually lose that weight. So I've been wanting to tackle this question for quite some time in a detailed way on the show. And I've really been keeping my eyes out and ears out as I do for the right person to bring on the show, because it's not, when you've got a thyroid problem, losing weight is not as simple as calories in, calories out. And if people don't understand the complexities of thyroid health, then their approach to losing weight might not match up with the struggles of thyroid health. So I've really been mindful of bringing the right person onto the show to chat about weight loss. So I would love to introduce you now to Karen Martel. Karen is a certified hormone specialist and transformation nutrition coach and a women's weight loss expert. She has her own program called OnTrack, which is all about balancing hormones and weight loss. And she's got her own podcast as well. So if you're looking for another great podcast in the realm of health to listen to, check out The Other Side of Weight Loss, because she has lots of really interesting guests and obviously shares a lot of her own valuable information on that show as well. Now, Karen has thyroid problems, and we delve into a bit of her thyroid story in the show. So I knew that she would understand, as someone who's been there, what it would be like to lose weight. Now, we cover a whole range of different topics, obviously from hormones, root causes, and the million-dollar question, how do you actually lose weight? And Karen shares a protocol with us that you'll want to grab your pen and paper and write that down. It is a slightly longer episode than normal because we just, let's be real, there's lots in this topic. I think you're going to really enjoy it. I would love to know, I'd love to get your feedback. So let me know what you think, maybe in the Let's Talk Thyroid community or as a share on social media. But now, just really enjoy this conversation. I hope you find it really helpful, encouraging, and hopeful. Hi, and welcome to the Let's Talk Thyroid podcast, where we discuss different aspects of living a healthy thyroid lifestyle, positively and practically, so that you can really thrive and not just survive. So join me, your host, Annabelle Bateman, and let's talk thyroid. I want to let you know that on the 4th of October, I am kicking off my next Kickstart Your Thyroid Friendly Lifestyle program. It's a 30-day program designed to do exactly what it says, and that is Kickstart a Thyroid Friendly Lifestyle. So this is not about a 30-day detox or a 30-day diet or a program that at the end of the 30 days, you just go back to doing whatever you were doing before. This is about developing some habits that are going to serve you well, lifelong probably, into your thyroid health journey. So for 30 days, we do focus on a thyroid-friendly diet, which is predominantly about eating foods that are nutrient dense and aren't going to cause inflammation, and removing your typically inflammatory foods. So things like gluten, grains, dairy, sugar, legumes, alcohol. So, but we also focus on mindset, affirmations. I talk about how to incorporate essential oils into your daily routine if you're an essential oil user. There's a daily email, there's a private Facebook group, there's lots of group support. There's an ebook that you get when you register that's got lots of recipes and recipe ideas and meal ideas. So you're definitely not left stranded. This is about supporting you on kickstarting that thyroid-friendly lifestyle. Welcome, Karen, to the Let's Talk Thyroid podcast. I really am excited to get diving into this whole topic of weight loss and thyroid health with you.
the $1 million question, isn't it, Annabelle?
Oh my gosh.
For all of us thyroid patients, how do I lose weight? So yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, look, it really is the $1 million question. And we were just saying just before we recorded, like I've sent Karen a list of, kind of questions, sorts of things to cover, because I do get asked this in my thyroid community all the time. And I've been waiting and just watching and trying to find the right person to invite onto the show, because I haven't done an episode specifically on weight loss because I've wanted to bring in the right person. And I heard you on Maddie Lansdowne's podcast, How to Not Get Sick and Die, recently. And I'm like, yes, Karen's my person. So I loved what you said on that. And I thought just to really bring, anyway, so I'm thrilled that you're here, but maybe would you mind just telling my audience a little bit about you, your thyroid story, set us up for intro, and then we'll dive into all the $1 million questions.
So my story begins actually after I had my first child. And I think there's a lot of women that can relate with that, because thyroid problems will pop up after pregnancy. Multiple reasons why, but mine, it was like, had the kid, lost the weight at first because I was breastfeeding, all my pregnancy weight, and then stopped breastfeeding. And then all this weight started to come on for no reason. I hadn't changed anything. It was just like every month I was just going up and up and up on the scale. And I did what every other woman does. I started to work out harder. I started, training harder with a trainer. He was ridiculous. I was doing like CrossFit stuff, and also had a personal trainer, and working out 5 days a week, trying every diet under the sun. I went through, vegetarian, I went to the Zone, I went to the Atkins. I tried it all.
Oh, yeah.
And just kept getting fatter and fatter. And not only that, I also had suddenly, at the same time, like this was never a problem before, I suddenly had chronic insomnia. I could not sleep for months. It was terrible.
Oh, wow.
I had
bad enough with a baby anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
My migraines got really, really severe. So I would have like week-long migraines. My stomach was terrible. Like I had really bad digestive problems and was super bloated and inflamed. Everything hurt. It was terrible. I was put on an antidepressant. I was put on sleeping pills, and I'm 33, Annabelle, 33. So nobody at that time is going to go, oh, it's your hormones. I remember clearly asking for my thyroid to be tested. She, of course, just tested TSH, came back totally normal. So I put that aside and carried on. Finally, a while into this, I decided this isn't working. What's going on? So I started to research on my own, and I decided, I think it's my hormones. Went to my naturopath, said, can you please test my hormones for me? He said, sure. And sure enough, I had so much issues going on in my hormones. I didn't test my thyroid at that time, but I saw that my adrenals were completely shot. I had high estrogen, low progesterone, and low DHEA. So I was doing all the wrong things to lose weight because my body was in total survival mode, holding on to fat. So I changed a bunch of these things. I started doing yoga, started taking care of my body. At that time, I discovered paleo. And that was like the light bulb went off, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is my diet. I didn't lose any weight from it. But it felt amazing.
Yeah. So I can probably relate to that. Yeah.
Yes. Right. It is truly the best diet for thyroid patients. I still believe that 12 years later, that is paleo. And I felt amazing on it. But it then took time. It took, probably a good year for me to balance those hormones out, recover the adrenals, and finally able to lose the weight. And I carried on until the second child showed up.
And so you still didn't really know that you had thyroid underneath all of this at that point, right? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And it wasn't until after my son was born that the same thing started to happen, and I started to gain the weight back again. And I was like, what? Like I had maintained my weight for 7 years. And suddenly here it was again after having a child. And so this time, because I had that naturopath in my pocket now, he said, have you go test your thyroid? I'm like, I've had my thyroid tested. And he's like, no, you haven't. Go test your thyroid.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to give you the requisition for it. Get in there. He phoned me a few days later and he said, I don't know how you're walking around right now. And I said, I'm like, what? He's like, your T3 is so low. I don't know how you're functioning. So TSH, totally normal. It was under 2.
Oh,
T4,
wow.
totally normal. T3 was very under
interesting.
range. So I wasn't converting T4 to T3. So there I go. I hop on my medication. I'm so pleased, right? I go on to I knew how to do the right thyroid medication. Luckily, one of my close friends is a thyroid expert. She coached me through it. So there I was on I don't know what you guys call it there, but it was like a armor.
Your natural desiccated thyroid.
Yes, natural desiccated thyroid. So ours is called IRFA. So it's T4, T3 combination coming from pig or cow, one of those animals. I increased my dose appropriately, felt like $1 million. Suddenly I'm losing weight. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm eating more and I'm losing weight for the first time effortlessly in my life.
Wow.
And I was so pleased. This was for about 4 to 5 months. And then suddenly,
why is this thyroid journey like that? And then, and then, that's talking well, and then.
It's so bad. In 1 month, and of course it creeps up, so I don't quite catch it right away, right? In a month's time, I gained 10 pounds. I couldn't get off my couch. My skin became super, super itchy. My breasts became inflamed, like just lots of really weird symptoms that I had actually never experienced before. And that was the first time I'd really experienced depression. And I'm like, what is happening? So I go in and I said, you got to test my reverse T3 again. And I tested it before and it was 15. Went back in. And so it had gone up to 19. So still in range for where we are, right? So where we are, it's 22 and up, I think, considered out of range. So I was at 19 and that was enough for my body to go into a complete thyroid crash because all that T4 from my desiccated thyroid was shuttling into reverse T3 and made me very, very sick. And it took me years to pull out of it. And I'm still working on it because I had to get to the bottom of why do I have reverse T3? Why am I not converting T4 to T3? What's the root problem? And I really wanted for us to talk about that today, because I really think that getting to the root of thyroid problems is something that most thyroid patients don't do. Most thyroid patients are looking for the medication that's going to solve the problem. And none of us are going, but why do we have a thyroid problem? Why do we have Hashimoto's? Why do we have subclinical hypothyroid? Why do we have this high reverse T3 problem where we're not, converting properly? So there's so many different reasons why you may have a thyroid problem. And it's so key to getting to the root of it in order to be able to lose the weight, truly.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's such a long journey, isn't it? Just like what you said, Karen. So I think you said, earlier that your daughter's now 14. Is that right? So,
yes.
This has been a 14, 15 year.
Yes.
Journey.
Yeah. And my son's 7. So it's been a long time since that too. And I felt, like I said, felt so good there for a while. And then things hit the fan.
Yeah. And life happens too, doesn't it? So it's not, we find that what seems to work, but it doesn't always hold for the whole. You can't it's not just set and forget. That's what I often say. You can't just set and forget.
Yeah. My sister said to me, I remember her telling her in my excitement about being on this medication. And I remember her going, that doesn't sound right. She's like, why do you have to take that much thyroid medication? She's like, there's got to be an issue. And I was just like, don't say that to me. This is working. I've got my blinders on. I finally feel good. And you hear this often with thyroid patients where they do feel good for a while when they're first put on medication. And then it's like, it stops working. And there's a reason for that. So
because you're not dealing with all the other things. So Karen, have you got Hashimoto's?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
No. So I have a conversion problem. So my body's in storage mode. So because I figured that I had an underlying infection I went through all the things that it could be. I did a gut test, I did a molds test. And then finally, even though it was bottom on my list, I thought there's no way I'm going to have heavy metals because I have no fillings in my mouth. I don't get vaccinated, even though I was vaccinated as a child. And I thought, oh, I'm just going to rule it out. Let's just go do it. And my mercury levels and my lead levels were as high as they could be on the chart.
Oh gosh. Wow.
And so that's my reason for my reverse T3. And so I'm still working on that. It's been 2 years.
That's a long term. So is that when you said before you want to dive into, the kind of the root cause, is this part of what you're wanting to talk about?
Yeah. And just that women need to get to the root cause because if you're struggling to lose weight on thyroid medication, number one is, are you optimized on your medication, and are you on the right type of medication? And we can talk about how to do that. And then from there, it's, well, why do I have this problem? And it's, so you have to start peeling back the layers to say, okay, where's this coming from? Why is my thyroid not functioning properly? And I get that testing can be expensive, but there's a lot of things that you can do for cheap that people can start to understand. Okay, maybe this is what's happening. Maybe you've got Epstein-Barr virus. Maybe you've got Candida, gut problems, autoimmune condition, things like that. And then start dealing with that while you're on the medication.
Yeah. So are there certain, can you just sort of go over, for the sake of the listeners, some common root causes, so that people, if they're listening and they're like, oh, maybe I do need to discover what's sitting behind that. Where do you recommend people start? What can they look for? What does that look like?
So first and foremost, I think everybody should know to test their antibodies. It's shocking how many women have been told they have hypothyroidism and they have never had their antibodies tested. So every one of you, go, and if you haven't already, test your thyroid globulin and your thyroid peroxidase. Those are the two antibodies. And if they're elevated, then that obviously means that the root cause is Hashimoto's. However, what is the root cause of the Hashimoto's?
Yeah, the root of the root.
You have to, the root of the root. You have to keep digging, because then you have to take it from an autoimmune standpoint. Your healing journey has to come from that. It has to be, okay, I have an autoimmune condition. I have an immune issue. So you have to address it that way, which is completely different than somebody like myself who's got a reverse T3 problem. So Hashimoto's patients, they have to be very careful with what they're eating. Their diet has to be very anti-inflammatory, whether it's paleo or autoimmune paleo. You have to heal the gut. You have to, deal with your stress, which we all do as thyroid patients, but you have to deal with that. So that's probably the first and foremost thing. Second would be to test, of course, for your reverse T3. We don't want to see a reverse T3 over 15. 15 is the top of the line. I don't know if you guys have the same measurements as we do here.
Sure. I'd have to have a look at that. I know that there's a little bit of debate about reverse T3 too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah. So Do you want to go into that?
Yes.
Maybe I'll go into it, but do you explain? Because there are some people that say the conversion is important, but reverse T3 isn't necessarily important. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So reverse T3 is a storage thyroid hormone. So typically we see an elevated reverse T3 when there's illness. So if you've got some sort of crazy infection, you're in the hospital, say with a staph infection or cancer or something like this, your body's smart and it says, we don't want to have a high metabolism right now. We don't want this person going out and running a marathon when they've got a staph infection. We're going to raise up reverse T3s. And so that means that the T4, instead of converting into the usable form of thyroid hormone T3, it's going to now convert into reverse T3 and just going to hold it there in storage. So your body can't use it. So this is going to slow your metabolism down so you can preserve your energy for that illness. We also see it when there's starvation. So, and think about that. This is very smart of our system. In times of famine, we have this built-in mechanism that says, oh, there's not a lot of food around. Quick, lower T3, up the reverse T3, and hold on to the fat tight, because there's not a lot of food around. We need to lower the metabolism. So your body doesn't realize, nor does your reverse T3 realize, that we are in a time right now where ketogenic and intermittent fasting and long-term fasting is the rage. I mean, it is, it's the most Googled diet there is.
Oh, is that right?
So we have keto and intermittent fasting is second.
Yeah.
So like there's something like 20 million Google hits in 2020 on ketogenic diets. Yeah, and 11 million for intermittent fasting. So a lot. And so we have all of these women that are overweight because they have a thyroid problem going, oh, I'm going to go do it when my friend did. I'm going to jump on this ketogenic diet or this intermittent fasting diet. And they're going, well, why am I not losing weight? And everybody tells them, well, fast harder, starve yourself longer.
And thyroid patients are good at that. We're pretty good at being hardcore.
Yes, we are. Exactly. And so it's just like the exact wrong thing that you can do. Right. So for me, it was then so my reverse T3 was the root problem, but then what's the root problem of the reverse T3 problem, which is for me, heavy metals, which there's a whole bunch of play in there. We all have heavy metals. We all detoxify them differently. So if you've got mercury, for instance, in your mouth, in amalgam fillings, we know 100% that will leak into your bloodstream. Now, how your body deals with it is going to be different for every person. Not only that, it's in our air. I mean, even airplanes still have leaded gasoline, and you can imagine it's all dropping down from the sky, right? So I had very high levels of lead and mercury. Well, mercury itself has an affinity for your thyroid. So it actually like will deposit itself in your thyroid. And then plus it just causes pressure on the system. It's not good. This mercury in any level, and there is no safe levels of lead in the body. So you can imagine what that does to a person's adrenal system, which then affects the thyroid, and you just have this like taxing toxin constantly in your body being let out. And lead itself stores itself in the bone. When you're pregnant, what happens when you're pregnant to your bones, ladies? They soften because you have to move. Your body has to move apart for the baby. So no wonder every time I had a pregnancy that afterwards I would have a thyroid flare. I didn't know it at the time, but I could just imagine the lead being leaked out into my body.
Yeah. Interesting.
Can't prove it.
I know. And that's the thing with root causes, isn't it? Is that, and I often say it's a bit of speculation, but you've got to do that speculation. You've got to do the work and think. There's no way of ever really knowing. I mean, I look back and sort of look at kind of some of the key root causes for common root causes, and I think, yep, tick, tick, tick. But you don't really know. You've just got to trust your intuition and look back and think, oh yeah, that makes sense. For me, I think one of the triggers was puberty. So another one of those hormonal shifts. Like it was picked up when I was 23. Again, I think they only tested TSH, but my TSH was 185.
No.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And they're like, how are you functioning? Like, I didn't know there was any other way. Just that was my life. But I look back and I can see from about that puberty age, that probably would have been a key trigger. It wasn't the only, there was a perfect storm brewing with other, antibiotics, tonsils removed, fluoride tablets, as a family, we moved from the country to the city, and that was a stressful event for me, so.
And do you have Hashimoto's?
Yeah, I do have Hashimoto's.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So you look back but you've got to look back, and look at, as you say, try to look at those root causes. So would you say, Karen, then for the $1 million question of how do you lose weight, is part of that looking like if you think you're doing all the right things, and we might talk about what the right things are, if you're doing the right things and not getting results, you definitely need to look back at the root causes.
You absolutely, I think no matter what, you have to.
Yeah.
And so I'll just like quickly rattle off some of the most common reasons for hypothyroidism. Stress, we all know, I'm sure you've talked about this before, but both high cortisol and low cortisol will harm the thyroid for a lot of people. So it can slow it down. toxins of any sort. So and that could be from mold. Mold is a really big one. And then the heavy metals, any sort of just toxins that are in the environment, because there's a lot of them. High levels of estrogen can cause hypothyroidism. And we're in an epidemic of xenoestrogens in our environment. That is affecting the thyroid. Dieting, yo-yo dieting, starvation diets, low calorie diets, a huge cause for women. Any sort of gut problem, so candida, parasites. We do a lot of the conversion of T4 to T3 in the gut. So very important to have a good gut. So our diets, of course, will impact that, which then impact the thyroid and can trigger autoimmune conditions. What am I forgetting here of all the big ones? Yep, I think that's
kind of the core.
That's a lot of core.
Yes,
yes. Those are the things that you would go through first. So, like I said, I first did a really comprehensive gut test. That looked good. Then I went and did the mold test online. That looked good, but it's told me that I was fighting something. And that something could be heavy metals. So that's what made me then trigger, okay, I'll just go get the heavy metals test. And that was my, so far, that's been my answer. But whether or not it actually is. So, yes. And then sometimes you are just born without specific enzymes, the deodorinase enzymes 1 and 2, and those are what's needed for conversion of T4 to T3. So some people are born genetically without those, and so they will have a reverse T3 problem because of that. And that's something I haven't tested for because we don't have it here, but you in Australia, I think you might.
Okay.
I think you might. I know the UK does, but it's a funny one because it's not popular. So there's not a lot of testing for it, but you guys might have it. I'm not sure.
I'll look into that. Okay. So that was the other thing. So maybe let's talk about the dieting, because that's a massive part of, I was a child of the 80s. I've done every diet. I think you rattled off a few before. I think I've done all of them. I think when I was writing my cookbook and kind of realizing that it was more about a lifestyle change and take that anti-inflammatory approach, I actually wrote down all of the diets that I could remember being on from about the age of 11. And was so many. And
that's so sad. And you've settled on paleo yourself.
I would describe my diet as paleo-ish, and it's probably become more strictly paleo over time.
Good.
But paleo-ish works for me. 100% gluten-free, mostly grain-free, increasingly. I would say I'm probably now 95% dairy-free, but the dairy has probably been the last of the big ones to.
That's a hard one to leave. So
the gluten's a no-brainer. And so that's where I sort of go a little bit like in out, but paleo-ish definitely. And just understanding, and I think for me it took understanding that it was about removing typically inflammatory foods, and Hashimoto's is an autoimmune disease. It's a core inflammatory. Everything I do for my health in general terms is about reducing inflammation. So
and where are your antibodies now?
They're pretty good actually. They're still there, but
but you look good. You don't look like you're hypothyroid.
No, I'm pretty good. I am good.
Okay, that's good.
I'm good. I still think like from a weight perspective, I probably still would be technically classified as overweight. So I've definitely I'm still holding extra weight. I'm not super concerned about that because I think I've done a lot of work on,
embracing
changing.
That.
Not so much even embracing it, but in getting rid of the diet mentality and the skinny mentality. And it's more about a lifestyle and being healthy. And about just around when I turned 40, I was diagnosed with a brain lesion, which is like a demyelinating lesion. And so that hasn't progressed. I haven't had any more episodes, so it hasn't progressed into MS. But that made me go, you know what? If I'm never skinny, it actually doesn't matter. I just need to be healthy. And so that was probably the final nail in that coffin. And so I probably, whilst I know, I could probably do with losing, I reckon, 5 to 8 kilos. I'm not fixated on that. I'm not trying to be on a diet. If that never happens, so be it. I've maintained a weight, and I don't even get on the scales anymore. But I've maintained for a long time. And I think that I haven't done the up and down the yo-yo thing. And that is good. I feel like that's a good place to be.
Yeah. Yes. I remember coming to that place where I just finally decided, do I really want to do what it would take for me to lose this last 10 pounds? And I thought, heck no, that would be severely suffering for me. And I'm like, I don't want to work out more and restrict my eating more. Like, I already eat really well. And I just thought, no, I'm going to just work on embracing where I'm at. And same with now, even though I've still got the weight on from the reverse T3 storm, I'm also going into menopause. So it's like, well, I'm going to be a little bit softer now, and that's okay. And so I'm just trying to embrace that. But let me tell you, so all the listeners, I'm going to give you guys just my protocol for you guys to find your weight loss code with thyroid.
Fabulous.
This is the money. This is the gold.
This is the $1 million
get ready.
Answer.
Yes.
Write it down. Grab your pens.
Yes. And unfortunately, it's not easy. Just in the sense of each one of you is going to be very different, but I'll give you step by step what I want you to do. And because this has to come first before we even go down to what diet to do. Here's what everybody needs to do if you're not already doing it, is you're going to buy yourselves a Gera thermometer. If you haven't already, this is GERA thermometer, Gera thermometer. You can get it on Amazon. They're like $10. It looks like an old mercury thermometer. So it's very exact. Unfortunately, digital thermometers don't work very well, and they tend to go up and down. This is very precise, and this is what we want. You are all going to take your temperature, your thyroid temperature. And so this is the basal body temperature. And so before you get out of bed in the morning, you're going to pop that in your mouth, and you're going to leave it there for 7 to 10 minutes, and you're going to record the temperature. And then you're going to do it again in the afternoon. You're going to sit down quietly for 10 minutes, then take your temperature for 10 minutes. I can give Annabelle my form on how to do this, and she could put it in the show notes.
Oh, fabulous.
Yes. So that you guys understand how to do it properly. Because you got to shake the thing down, and you got to do it a second half of your month, second half of the cycle of your cycling. So you're going to see what your temperature is. If you're in Australia and Canada, you want to be reaching 37 degrees in the second half of your cycle in the afternoon. It can go from 36.5 to 37 from morning till afternoon. That's very normal. In the United States and other places, it's Fahrenheit. So you're reaching for 98.6 in the afternoon. If after you've done 4 to 5 readings, I would do a couple of readings each week, both weeks, for 2 weeks. And if you were consistently coming in under that 98, under 98.2 and under, let's say 36.5, 36.6, if you're always coming in under, you are not on enough medication. So first and foremost, you cannot lose weight if you have a body temperature that is suboptimal. So that's how you know if you're on enough medication, is you want to have a steady, I would say probably actually 36.8 to 37 in the afternoon. And that's how you know, okay, my metabolism is working. So now I can find out what diet is best for me. So everybody has to do that first, because if you're not reaching that, you need to go to your doctor and you need to get put on proper medication, which for most women, thyroid patients, it is a desiccated T3, T4, because we tend to all have problems with that conversion. I have worked with hundreds and hundreds of thyroid patients. I have yet to meet somebody that does okay on T4 only medication, which is the gold standard of what's being handed out at a medical office. So T4 only, is not a good idea for most people. I would say 95% of thyroid patients. You want desiccated. And most people need more than 60 micrograms. There's a lot of doctors that underdose thyroid patients, and they get freaked out because when you're on desiccated thyroid, TSH will become suppressed. So they think that you're becoming, sorry, my alarm. They think that you're going to become hyperthyroid and they're going to give you a heart attack. Now, there's a negative feedback loop that happens with your thyroid. So when you do a thyroid increase in your medication, you want to take that temperature, once or twice a week for 3 to 4 weeks. If it doesn't move up your temperature up to that beautiful 37 degrees, time for another increase in dose, because your body has a negative feedback loop with thyroid medication. It reads it coming in. It goes to the brain. It says, oh, we've got thyroid medication coming in. It's going to down regulate your thyroid production. So you need to do what's called a physiologic replacement of that thyroid. Super key. So everybody first, you have to have a functioning metabolism. I tell my clients this all the time because they're like, oh, Karen, I've been, dieting and I've been doing this meal plan. And I'm like, you could go down to 600 calories a day. You will not lose a pound.
You'll probably gain weight.
You will gain weight. Exactly. Your reverse C3 is going to go up and you're going to gain weight. So you have to have a functioning metabolism. We're so blinded right now with diets. Like it's just like tunnel vision going, oh my God, it's just, what diet do I do? And everybody just goes from one diet to the next, thinking that's the answer, or one exercise to the next, one workout to the next, trying to lose that weight. You won't happen until your metabolic rate is up. And if you can't get it up, then you have to look farther into it, because some people like myself, I at one point was up to 150 micrograms of T3 only. Now, most doctors would fall over if they heard that and would think that I was giving myself a heart attack. I couldn't feel a thing. And my temperature was at like 36. It wouldn't move. And I was very hypothyroid still. It's because that medication wasn't getting into the cells. So I had to figure that out, which was the cortisol and all this other stuff. Okay. But it's in now, it's working. Now I don't take that much, but just so everybody understands. So once you get your metabolism to where it needs to be, now you can try to lose weight. So this is Hashimoto's patients. You always have to start autoimmune paleo. And I know that that's like, many of you have probably been like, I don't want to know that because it looks too hard. Do a 4-week autoimmune meal plan, like 4 weeks. You can commit to 4 weeks. Anybody can do anything for 4 weeks. You have to do this because you don't know what the foods are that are bothering you. And that can make the hugest difference. So do that for 4 weeks, figure out what foods are bothering you. And then you can start putting things back in. And then go to a paleo diet minus any foods that are your trigger. And I say paleo because as much as I try to be very open-minded when it comes to, okay, if you're vegan, vegetarian, like I'll work with you. We'll work with whatever I can get, that's fine. Thyroid patients, we are inflamed. We've got, there's a root cause to this. And inflammation is always a driving factor. And paleo is a very easy way to lose weight and to go into a caloric deficit without starvation, which is key for a thyroid person. Because as soon as you start to, like if you're fighting hunger levels and you're trying to restrict your calories and you're doing these little tiny portions of your little brown rice and your boiled chicken, and it's a matter of time before that fails and you just eat everything in sight.
Well, you can't live like that. Well, I don't know. No, I don't think you can live like that. Then to me, that's then being on a diet. That's not a lifestyle. That's not maintainable or enjoyable. No. Like, I don't know, brown rice and boiled chicken sounds disgusting to me. Like, or it sounds like being on a diet. It's a bit like cottage cheese and grapefruit, like, that's just
nasty. Yeah.
It's diet food. That's the way I see that. Yeah.
And I think we all have to embrace that this is who we are. Like we're always going to have, even if we get to the root of the problem, we'll always have a sensitive thyroid. So you do have to look at it as a lifelong thing. Like I'm going to change my diet and change it to something that I can maintain for life. And it's not to say you won't be able to one day add some stuff back in. Like occasionally I'll have gluten now when I didn't touch it for many years, but occasionally I can do it now and I don't have any repercussions. I can have ice cream sometimes and dairy, and that's, no big deal at all. I can have the odd grain and it's no big deal, 80% of the time I stick with paleo, and the rest I can, I'm very flexible, and everybody can get to that point.
Healing point. You've done the healing. Yeah. And that can take years, can't it?
It really can. It took me years. Yeah.
It's taken me years too. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you can get onto that, it's good food and it's going to be anti-inflammatory, and it's very hard to overeat the foods that are in a paleo diet. We tend to overeat a lot of the grains, and we don't tend to overeat a lot of animal protein. So if you can, you want to make sure you get enough protein in there. There's two fellows, I don't know if you've heard of them yet, down in Australia. The Eat Like the Animals book, the authors.
I have heard of
Robenheimer and Simpson.
Yeah. Well, okay. Keep talking. Yes, I have heard of that. Yeah.
So I just interviewed them for my podcast. They're brilliant.
Okay.
And
cool.
They've got some just groundbreaking evidence that's never been shown before about protein, and how we as humans will we will overeat fats and carbs in order to meet our protein intake that we want. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been listening to a lot of that. I do follow people like Paul Saladino and Michaela Peterson. I like it, some of that more.
They're a little too hardcore.
Yeah, they're a bit too hardcore. Yeah, they're too. I'm not saying, that's too hardcore for me too. But I found it interesting to listen, to some of those.
Because we also have, what they talk about is we have an off switch as well. So we eat it to what we want, and then we have a switch that turns it off. That says, okay, I've had enough protein. It's like if you sat down to a steak, it could be the most delicious tenderloin steak in the whole world. But if somebody said, hey, Annabelle, do you want another steak? No, right? Like, would you ever eat two steaks? Probably not.
No,
not many people
but you would eat 2 pieces of cake or 2 bowls of ice cream or
2 bowls of lasagna or spaghetti or something that's just nothing but carbs and grains, right? Like, it's so easy to overeat those, and it turns on this thing where you will seek out more of those foods in order to reach the protein intake that your body requires. So protein should come first, and it should come first, especially for thyroid patients. I really believe that. So that is what you're paleo first. So optimize your thyroid, switch to a paleo diet, find out which foods are bothering you. And then from there, most thyroid patients will lose weight. If you are aging, if you are in your late 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, it is a different story now, because it's not just your thyroid that's being impacted, that's impacting the weight. It is now the entire hormonal system. So there's many, many hormones that when we start to lose them, we start to lose progesterone first in our 30s, 35 to 40, we'll start to lose progesterone. Progesterone is needed for thyroid production. So we see a lot of women actually develop hypothyroidism when they go into peri and postmenopause. Yeah. So you have to start addressing these other hormones, because without them, once again, it's like without thyroid hormone, your body will have a very hard time losing weight.
We're complicated, aren't we?
Yes, we are. Yes.
Amazing.
But starvation's not the answer. Ketogenic diets are not the answer. Carnivore is not the answer.
Yeah.
I have heard, like, some people will say, they went keto or carnivore and they felt really good at first, but most people, actually, even non-thyroid patients, it eventually stops working, and people will regain the weight, or they just come to a complete stall, and then they become very carb intolerant. Thyroid patients really need carbohydrates, the right kinds of carbohydrates. We need low inflammatory things like sweet potato, fruits, tubers, carrots, beets, things like that. They're really important, right? That's both your adrenal system and the thyroid system both need some carbohydrates. So don't fall into the trap of come on, keto's the best way, and intermittent fast for days on end. And not good.
No. Well,
you could. Sorry. I was just going to say, if you're optimized, because I get this question all the time, I have hypothyroidism. Can I fast?
Yeah, I was about to ask that, the fasting question.
Yeah. So if you are optimized on your medication and you have a working metabolism, then intermittent fasting is totally okay, as long as you're not overdoing it. Do not go to this OMAD, 1 meal a day. Don't fast don't do even just 2 meals every day, unless you count your calories and you see that you're getting sufficient amounts of calories in. What I like to do is I do like a carb cycling program. So mine is, one day we'll have normal amounts of carbs. The next day we drop down in the carbs, and then we come back up, and same with calories. So sometimes there's a normal amount of calories, and then sometimes we'll be in a caloric deficit. And then the next day we come up, because this is signaling to the body, we're not in starvation. So at first, when people first jump into the fasting, they can lose weight. Same with keto. They're like, this is amazing. I'm eating 1 to 2 meals a day and I just feel great and I'm losing weight. And then everything crashes. They start losing their hair. They lose their period, because they're signaling to the body that they're that there's a famine. And so sooner or later, at different points for different people, that will start to downregulate the hormones, the metabolism, the thyroid, all of that. And I tested my thyroid when I started keto, and and a month later, I tested it again, and my T3 dropped a point.
Oh, wow. That's
so just to show you. Yes.
Yeah. And I think that when we're doing those sorts of things, well, I'm a big advocate for testing regularly anyway. Get your thyroid levels tested regularly. And for me, regularly is probably, well, it's varied, but at bare minimum once every 3 months. Yeah. Sometimes it's more than that. But yeah, like I was interested in the intermittent fasting for years, really, but I'm like, I just don't think it's right. And I talked to my doctor, who's fabulous, and she's like, no, Annabelle, I don't think, And then we got to a point where it's like, I think you probably could give it a go now. So I think it is about being in the right healthy space. And it actually made a really big difference. And so I sort of did it for about a year, 2 days a week, roughly vegan fast, like for those 2 days. It was and then I've had a break, so I was really careful not to be religious about it, and not to be a dieting thing, but it actually helped to get my thyroid functioning better than it had been, because my thyroid had been out from I had a period of time where I cheated on my doctor, went to someone different because she lives an hour away, or she works at, her practice. So I was like, surely I can find someone closer. This guy who I saw put me on Duramine, which is a weight loss drug. It's speed, basically. Yeah. And so it was a combination of a few bad things. He then was retiring and going away on holidays. I didn't get the follow-up that I should have had. I didn't initiate that. It was a whole lot of bad stuff. But the upshot was, maybe I'll go back to my normal doctor. And she's like, what have you been doing? And because she got my test results, what have you been doing? And I said, I've cheated on you. I'm so sorry. And she's like, no. What have you been doing? And I said, I'm on Duramine. My TSH had flown up to like 70 or something. Like it had put me into this massive thyroid storm. And it took me a good 5 years to deal with the outworkings of that. And so I think that was then, so the fasting, the experimenting then with some intermittent fasting came on the very end of that, after lots of healing, lots of years of taking. So I get very passionate when people talk about thyroid medication. I'm like, don't. I mean, weight loss medication, it's speed.
Yes.
Yes. But my point was, by the time I had a go at it, I'd healed enough, and actually it did help. It actually really helped for a period of time, and I'm not doing it at the moment, and that's fine. So I think it's, but as you say, it's not just I don't think you should just enter into intermittent fasting if you've got a thyroid problem just for the sake of it.
Because almost every thyroid patient has an adrenal problem in the beginning if they're not optimized, right? if you're not on enough medication, it's going to mess with your thyroid or with your adrenal system. And if your adrenal system is not functioning properly, it's going to mess with your thyroid. And we all know that as women, we are highly stressed out these days with a lot of different things coming at us, right? Whether it's environmental or inside our brains, we're working too much, doing too much, we're working full time, being mothers. Like, we do have a lot of stress coming at us. And so you have to, if you go throw on fasting on top of all of that, 100% fasting is a stressor.
Yeah.
So you're just putting fuel to the fire, and you're going to know it's not right. If you're coming out of a fast and you're just wanting to eat everything in sight and you don't feel good, that is a sign that is not for you. If you've got optimization on that thyroid and you feel good and you can just go, you know what, I'm going to not eat till 11 o'clock and see how that feels. Great. See how that feels, because it can help with, of course, blood sugar problems. It can help. It's a very anti-aging. It has a lot of health benefits to it. You just want to have the right atmosphere on the inside in order to be able to do it properly and actually get those benefits.
Yeah. So Karen, I had a couple of questions from just within my little Let's Talk Thyroid Facebook community. Yeah. Can we cover? I think we've probably covered a lot.
Yeah.
I know we could keep chatting for hours, but I'm mindful of your time, and it's the end of your day, the beginning of mine. So some of the questions, so this is a good question. Well, we've kind of dealt with one, which was the fasting question. So I think we've talked about that. But here's one about exercise and weight loss. So now this lady's got she's had half a thyroid removed. So she says, how do I lose weight? I run between 5 to 7 kilometers a day. I don't eat rubbish or really that much, but I can't seem to lose any more weight since losing half my thyroid. And I would say that's a common question, whether you've got half a thyroid, Hashimoto's, no thyroid, it's like, but I'm running, but I'm doing the things. And so,
Yes. Okay. Cardio is probably one of the worst types of exercise. So running is probably one of the worst things for hypothyroid patients. Once again, adrenal problems, there's a lot of them with us. And when you're running and doing high amounts of cardio, especially for long term, so if you're running for an hour, you're doing a HIIT class or a fitness class or, something where your heart rate's really coming up, that raises cortisol. So you're going to put a stress, once again, on an already stressed adrenal system, and your thyroid and your body's just going to go, yeah, I'm not going to lose weight. And it actually makes it so that you hold onto the fat harder. So it's completely counterintuitive. It's like, what? I remember thinking that too. I always thought if I could just run, I would lose weight.
I've done that too.
I tried for years to be a runner, and I'm like, this sucks.
I did too. And my chiropractor would be like, Annabelle, you're not built to be a runner, but I should be able to be a runner.
Because then I'll be skinny, right?
Yeah.
That's what
if
I
I'm
thought.
going to do yoga, I'm going to do Bikram yoga. If I'm going to box, I'm going to do box.
Yes.
Go hard, go home. If you're not sweating, vomiting, what's the point?
Yeah. No.
Yeah. That's so yeah. So what should we be doing? What sort of exercise is going to help us lose weight?
For weight loss, across the board, your number one thing is weightlifting. And I don't mean just your little 5-pound dumbbells, really lift weights, put muscle on. It's very, very hard for a woman to get bulky. So you don't have to worry about that, but get a personal trainer if you're not familiar with it. Get in there for at least 3 times a week, for 30 minutes on each of those days. That's a great place to start. And if that's all you can commit to, then that is fine. But you want to build muscle. Building muscle is going to raise your metabolism. It's going to shape your body. It's going to be good for bone health. And it's least destructive to the thyroid. And the body, after lifting weights, the body continues to burn up calories, right? You're going to stay in that metabolic state for 24 to 48 hours after, especially if you're doing ones that are, you can find them a lot on YouTube, where you kind of go quickly from one exercise to the next, but you're lifting weights.
Okay. And
so you keeping a little bit of a heart rate up, but not the kind that when you're running, but just enough so that you're doing 12 chest presses, 12 bent over rows, 12
without big
shoulder press. That is really great for fat burning for 24 to 48 hours after. If you run, As soon as you stop running, you stop burning. Yes.
Okay.
So it's like getting better bang for your buck.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you can then do, 10 minutes, maybe twice a week of a hit. So where you're getting the heart rate up, or you're going for a sprint, or maybe for this lady, she would go for a walk and she would do a 1 minute sprint walk, 1 minute sprint until she gets to 10 minutes. And she could do that twice a week.
Yeah.
And that's great for the cardio without stressing the body out too much.
Excellent.
Hiking, yoga is fantastic. Hot yoga, Bikram, I don't care what, but yoga is probably one of the best things because it's so good for the adrenal system, tones the body, it gets on the inside. It even helps actually thyroid to function because certain poses are directed at thyroid. The neck ones. Yeah. So those are by far my favorite things. What you don't want to be doing is like CrossFitting, working out for an hour plus a day. That's a big no-no. You want, maybe go for a walk for a half an hour and lift weights for a half an hour. That's it.
Yeah. That sounds
that's
doable.
And then you uptick that protein. Boom.
Yeah.
That's a whole recipe for weight loss.
Yeah.
You got an optimized thyroid, you're weightlifting, that's like, you're going to get it.
Yeah. Yeah. So this might answer this question from Tracy. Why do I feel the need to snack and eat chocolate at night?
So that's so funny. I get that question all the time. Or if I ask women, like, what's your biggest weight loss struggle?
It's a common,
It's I can't stop eating at nighttime. Why do I snack so much at nighttime? And there's multiple reasons for it, but one of them can be that women are eating too low carb at dinner time. So make sure you're eating enough at dinner and that you're adding in some carbs. So if you're kind of going that lower carb range and you're just eating like meat and vegetables, you want to add in like the sweet potato or have a bowl of fruit after dinner or something like that. And then you'll find that those cravings for carbs aren't as strong later on. Second is boredom. We get bored and we get into this habit of eating at that time of night and we go seeking for that sugar because we're finally relaxed and we just are like, oh, I need some more comfort. Where's my sugar? So just simply doing something else with your hands can really help. So I tell women, if you knit, crochet, anything like that, or, write in your journal, anything to keep yourself occupied because it's just a brain switch.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I tell women is, if it's just like you just can't control it, because I understand, I've never been a nighttime eater, but when I feel like sugar, I really feel like sugar. So if that is you and it's really hard to resist that craving at nighttime, give into it, but let it be something that is safer. So if you're eating chocolate, have a couple squares of dark chocolate and a cup of like mint tea with it. So you're giving yourself some pleasure. It's not enough that it's going to harm you at all. It's not going to make you gain weight. It's not going to stop you from losing weight. A couple of squares of chocolate at nighttime. It's not the end of the world. So give that to yourself, or have fruit. Sometimes I'll just get like that really thick Greek vanilla yogurt and I'll put some granola in there. And it's like, I have this really good paleo granola and I'll put that on top of it and some strawberries. Oh, it's like dessert. It's delicious.
Yeah.
So you can find these little things that aren't going to keep, it's not this great big bucket of ice cream.
Yeah. You can find better choices within that.
Better choices. Yeah. And then make sure you eat it. Try to always eat before 7:30. 7:00 ideally should be your cutoff. So if you eat dinner, half an hour later, have your sweet and then drop it, because as soon as you start going after that, you start messing with melatonin production
and your sleep and all. Yeah. And all of that.
Yeah.
Two more quick questions that maybe overlap, and then is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the question was, I'll read the two questions and maybe they overlap. So Emma asks, if I've been told I'm borderline overactive thyroid, but I'm not losing any weight no matter how hard I try. I thought if I was underactive, she says I thought I was underactive as a mother. So there's that kind of underactive, overactive question,
which can happen with
autoimmune. Yeah. So it could be that unstable thyroid. Yeah.
So you would just want to address that from that autoimmune standpoint, right?
First.
Because it can go from Hashimoto's to Graves, and then back, back. So some women, sometimes they're in that Graves mode, sometimes they're in Hashimoto's. So the trick is bring down the antibodies altogether. It's the same protocol. You still do autoimmune, you go on the low dose naltrexone, like things that are going to help improve the immune system.
Yeah. Okay. And then the other question was, I'd like to know about maintenance of a healthy weight once you've lost weight. And I'm just going to say, before you answer that question, to my listeners who might not know, Karen has a podcast called The Other Side of Weight Loss. So I'm assuming that a lot of, and I've listened to some of your podcasts, and it's great, and you get on lots of great guests. And so I'm going to give that a plug anyway.
Thanks.
But to me, The Other Side of Weight Loss, as the name of a podcast suggests, that there is another side, and that some of that's about maintenance. Am I right? Am I on the right path with that?
Well, actually, I don't talk much about maintenance, but I should.
Yeah. Well, here's your opportunity. How do we maintain,
The title is more about like, what else could we be doing that could be affecting our weight besides calories and calories out and exercise, right? So it's like, what else, like our thyroid is impacting the weight. So maintenance, your body is got that body mass set point, right? So that's at a set point where your body will like to be. So your body will naturally probably stop. Nobody just keeps losing till they're wasting away. Like nobody does that unless you're hyperthyroid. So if you're losing copious amounts of weight, and you're getting a little bit like, I need to just maintain this, that there's a problem there. Because in most cases, your body will lose till it gets to its set point that it likes to be at. Like mine is 128. It will never go below 128. I'm higher now. My set point's higher, but for most of my fertile years, I was 128. And it was like, no matter how much I dieted, it would go down a few pounds, right back up to 128. So that was my set point. So we all have that. And that I didn't look super skinny at that either. So each person will have that. And then once you're there, I really don't think that you need to count calories or anything. I really just think it's a matter of eat till you're full, stop. If you're not trying to actively lose weight, you just monitor how you're feeling when you're eating, which is, I've had enough. I'm not going to overeat, and you push it away. Right. And because if you're trying to lose weight, you do try to calorie restrict somewhat. Right. So in my group, in my OnTrack membership group, I have women do the intermittent fasting 3 days a week so that by the end of the week, they're in a caloric deficit without struggling. And so then they'll lose the weight. They slowly start to lift, the pounds start to come off in a very safe way. So if you were trying to not lose weight, I would say don't do the fasting. You're not trying to calorie restrict. So you're just going to eat to be fulfilled and still want to stick with that paleo template if you can.
Fabulous. Well, I think there are a gazillion questions, but I think we've covered a lot. You've been very generous with your information, and I love this. I don't know how you find with your podcast, but I feel like every time I talk to someone new on the podcast, I've made a new friend, and I love that.
Same. Yes. I love it.
So I'm I'd love to think of you as one of my thyroid friends, Karen.
Absolutely.
Really
yes.
That. So Karen, if people wanted to connect with you, how should they do that? Where do they find you? How do they get more of you?
So the podcast and KarenMartel.com. I always tell everyone, go take the quiz. I've got an awesome quiz.
You do. I did it yesterday, and it is really good. Thank you for mentioning that, because I know we talked about it before we started recording, but I did that. Yeah, it was really interesting. I'm like, there's lots of things I don't have. That's good. But it was really good in identifying, and sort of which hormones are causing the most problem.
Yes. And so it's going to give you what could be the top hormone that's stopping you from losing weight. And thyroid is in there, but you never know. You might come up with something else that could be actually impacting your thyroid. Like if you've got high estrogen or high cortisol, then you would say, this could be why I'm not losing weight, even though I have hypothyroidism. So it could be contributing to it. So it comes with the 2-week meal plan. That's exactly what I'm talking about. The carb cycling, intermittent fasting, calorie cycling. plan. So that is a good one for thyroid patients to try.
Yep. So definitely go take the quiz. Yeah, go to your website. I've been following you on Instagram since I came across you, and got some great information there. So I think this global thyroid community is full of people, really, I guess because we've all walked the talk, we've all walked the journey, we want to share what's worked for us. So I think it's a very generous community. There's a lot of really helpful information and support available. So
and anyone can DM me on Instagram. Tell me what you're struggling with. I always say, like, go for it. I always answer everybody. So DM me on Instagram and I can at least point you in the right direction, or say, hey, go listen to this episode that I did that has information about what you're struggling with.
Yeah. So thank you very much. And
thanks for having me.
It's been fun. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Let's Talk Thyroid. I would love it if you enjoyed it, if you would hit subscribe and the bell. That would be really helpful. Even more helpful, actually, would be to share it with someone else who you know has thyroid issues or you think would benefit from listening. That really is part of my mission, I suppose, is to spread the message of positive and practical approach to managing your thyroid health, so that people really kind of have more energy to get on with living their life and not just kind of trudging through each day. So spreading that word really genuinely helps other people feel better, live better, be better. The best way that you can connect with me is through my website, which is annabellebateman.com. From there, really, you'll be able to connect in all the other ways. I would love it if you would join my Facebook community group. There's lots of great support there. It's all free. That's just being with like-minded people. But from the website, you can also book a strategy session with me. So if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, not too sure where to start, then book a strategy session. There's also freebies to download and links to look at my online courses or purchase some essential oils or my cookbook. So that's really the hub, would be annabellebateman.com. But look forward to connecting with you and just being in this thyroid health journey together. Have a great day. Bye.
The information presented and discussed in this podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease and should not be used as a substitute for proper advice from a qualified professional.